Putting around, we just got to go out and do it.
Those words have caused waves. Now, let the rooster tails fly. It's a sport of thrills, fueled by the need for speed.
And a strong lead has Mark's getting loose. The boat really rises in the air.
In hydroplane racing, disaster is always just one turn away.
Talking to his rescue man, he's out.
Let's give him a
pats
big
him on the back, they hug, and Mark Evans is all right.
The unexpected is forever just around the corner.
Oh, look out for the Elam's on top of the Budweiser.
Oh, my
Elam
God.
just climbed on top of the Budweiser.
And it's heading for the log boom. It's heading for the log boom. They're still.
Oh, it's very close. It's very close.
Those frightening moments are now mere memories. It is a new season, a new chance for glory. Racing's thunderboats have arrived on the shores of Lake Washington. Today, there will be a showdown. The prize? The 1998 Texaco Cup.
The 1998 Seafair Texaco Cup pre-race is brought to you by Texaco, a world of energy, and by Southwest Airlines, the official airline of Seafair, giving you the freedom to fly.
And good Sunday morning to you. Are you having a great day or what? We are. Grab a second cup of coffee. Have that jelly donut. We've got boat racing for you. You're looking at a gorgeous shot of the Northwest from Chopper 7. That is the man to beat today, Dave Villwock and Team Budweiser. He'll be challenged by the defending champ, Mark Evans in the Pico American Dream. And the Mondo Chihuahua sits by himself contemplating, can he be an upset victor today on a gorgeous day along Lake Washington? And a pleasant good morning to all of you. Steve Rabel here, high atop the Stan Sayers pits along the shores of Lake Washington, all set to bring you wall-to-wall coverage, continuing live coverage all day long of the Texaco Cup at Seafair. For the 48th time, the hydroplanes have arrived here in Seattle for a day of boat racing. We've got the fastest boats on the water, some of the fastest jets in the air that you will ever see, and the biggest party the Emerald City knows how to throw. 350,000 of our closest friends have joined us here along the shores. You sit tight, watch all day long with us from your easy chair at home. And here's the question to contemplate, because the drivers today are talking about this. The one question that has overshadowed boat racing here in Seattle all week long. Is there a conspiracy?
We kicked Budweiser's butt, man. It was a great weekend, and we're going to do it this weekend, too.
Beat the Bud. If there was a theme for this weekend in Seattle, that would likely be it. Miss Budweiser had won everything in sight until last weekend.
I think it put us in a more focused state of mind. We lost last weekend, and that's okay. We know we're going to lose some races, but I think it made all the guys and myself even more focused.
More focused, yes, but after racing in Kelowna, BC, there were cries of conspiracy. The Bud camp felt like they'd been ganged up on, and there were words.
You get emotionally charged at a race, and you say some things, but, I figure this is World Wrestling Federation on water, right? And all my little Hulksters are real happy with the weekend.
Steve David and the other drivers know the red boat is very fast. They know to beat it, the Bud must be forced to run a wider course. So one of the other boats must play the rabbit, if you will.
Take whatever it's got to take to beat them, you betcha.
And what's the response from the Budweiser camp?
If they could run their boat anywhere as fast as they run Steve's mouth, they'd be awesome.
Those sound like fighting words to me, and here is where the battle will be done. The 2-mile course along Lake Washington. Doesn't that look calm and tranquil right now? Wait till those boats get out there. Wait till the rest of the pleasure boats come up to the log boom and start those rollers going across the course. We'll talk about it all today. We'll also discuss the drivers, the boat camps, and what's going on down in the pits. And for that, we begin with the Kiro 7 Sports Director, Tony Ventrella.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. We're on the southeast side of the pits, and right behind us, Freddie's Club and the crew getting ready. They are one of the boats that will challenge the Miss Budweiser today. In fact, they're both in Heat 1A, so we're going to get right off to a challenge early. Jim Harvey, the crew chief here, has told his driver, Steve David, you may not have the speed to beat the Budweiser, so you got to use brains. You got to get into the head of their driver, Dave Villwock. And they're distributing signs here at this camp, which basically say no whining, because Steve David accused the Bud camp of whining after last week's loss to the Pico. We'll see how that plays out today. Let's toss it over to Bill Rocky on the other side of the pits.
Thanks, Tony. A year ago, Mark Evans in the Pico American Dream just had a career day. He flipped his boat, won the Texaco Cup, and he's the defending champion here in Seattle. A week ago, up in Kelowna, the Pico won for the first time this year. The first guy to beat the Budweiser this year. They've been testing both their boats really hard the last hour or so, and they're working up here on the engines now. Now, Mark's brother Mitch has had quite a week here in testing, and for more on that, let's go over to Bill Wixie.
You're right, Bill. They have had quite a week here, and this is a sport about history, really. When I was a kid, it was the pay and pack and the Miss Bud always challenging for the title here on Lake Washington. History has changed a little bit. John Walters used to drive the pay and pack. He's the crew chief of this boat, the Appian Geronimo, driven by Mitch Evans, Mark's brother, and this is a boat that will make a serious challenge to the Miss Bud today. We really think so. This boat actually ran 2 laps faster than the Budweiser yesterday in qualifying, although those laps were disqualified because of running at too high of an RPM. But today, during a race condition, they could come out and seriously pose a threat. Will they? We'll find out. Steve?
All right, Bill Wixie, thank you. And now the logbook. This is where the partying takes place in earnest. Their folks been out there for 2 days, lined up, getting ready to watch boat racing. And we had a little bit of a problem a year ago, as you remember. You saw the pictures a moment ago. We'll discuss that, what they've done with the logbook and where the boats are allowed to be and not allowed to be as they watch the race course and watch the boat racing take place. Meantime, there was some testing going on earlier this morning. As the fans began to arrive at 7 o'clock, a little after that, Budweiser takes to the water. As Scotty Pierce, who will be my sidekick today, and we'll chat about this in just a couple of moments, what's called a butterfly run. Just go out and loosen up, get the butterflies out, work the boat out a little bit. Also going out this morning was Steve David's Freddie Casino. About 140, mid-140s. Not a fast boat when it comes to the guys to really compete, but will he get into Dave Villwock's head? And of course the Pico, they went out and tested this morning, and it looks like they put a couple of new engines in there, and they will be ready to run. Here is the schedule of events today. We begin in earnest at 11 a.m. with Heat 1A, followed by 1B. The Blue Angels, always a big hit here at Seafair since they've returned in the last couple of years. Straight up 12 noon, the Blue Angels will be performing. Remember, if you're still planning on coming down, the I-90 bridge will be closed around that time, so be careful. Then 1 and 125, you've got heats 2A, 2B. 2 more heats after that. We're looking for our Texaco Cup final at around 4:10. Remember, anything can happen on the water, and usually does, and if it does, the schedule will be pushed back a bit, but we're here to cover it all for you today. Everyone's moving into position. You settle back. We've got a day of boat racing and air show for you from Lake Washington. Boy, that's a beautiful sight, isn't it? The Budweiser gleaming red in the morning sun here along Lake Washington. Again, as we've talked about, this is the boat to beat, and it has been for I don't know how many years on the Unlimited Hydroplane circuit. Bernie Little, the owner, he's had any number of drivers running the show for him, and they all seem to be able to get the job done. Of course, when you spend about 3 times more than anybody. Now, to go from the water to this, who is that? Why he looks familiar. I hardly recognize him out of the boat, but is it? Could it be in a sprint car? You bet. It's our broadcast partner, Scotty Pierce, in a new line of work, or maybe just a line of work that he's enjoyed for a number of years and finally gets the chance to do. And we welcome back to the tower here. He's in the car. Well, let's go ahead and watch him drive here a little bit, at least at some point. Scott, come on, move the car. There we go. Get him off the dime here.
It's going fast there.
All right. In his sprint car is Scott Pierce. And before that, he was in any number of hydroplanes down here on the shores, won his share of boat racing as well. Scott Pierce, welcome to you, and thanks for joining us again as our expert commentator here for Kiro 7.
Well, Steve, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Working with you in the Kiro group is a real highlight of my year, and the only thing that's even a little more fun is that sprint car.
Is the sprint car. And that's always, once you guys get that speed in your blood, it's tough to get it out, I expect.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I raced the Unlimited for 17 years and had a lot of success, and I attribute, all of the good things that have happened to me in my life, my business, and my wife and my family through hydroplane racing. But it was time to move on and time to do new challenges, and that's what we've done. So it's great to be back and see all my friends for a day and watch what's sure going to be a heck of a show. But I'm really loving that dirt.
We are going to talk throughout the course of the day conspiracy, all the talking back and forth between the boat camps, and of course we remember 1 year ago when we were out here covering the hydroplane races and we saw some exciting boat racing. We also saw some scary moments. Take a look. You saw it a moment ago. Let us remind you about the race last year. And Scott, talk about this with the Elam and the Bud coming through the turn.
Well, what happened here is never happened before. And so I think that was the biggest shock that anybody saw, is that we've never had a situation where a boat came on top of another boat and then piggybacked it. Of course, as we sat here, we were, very apprehensive of how close they were coming to the log boom. Both you, Mike Fitzsimmons, and I are going, oh boy, this isn't looking good. I really would be surprised if we were to see something like that again. But then again, Seafair always throws something at you.
Well, and as it turned out, that wasn't the log boom at all. It was just boats that had moved into position after the Blue Angels performance, moved in along the buoy line out there. That's no longer allowed. Those boats will be kept way back. In fact, let's go out to the log boom and find out what's being done out there, not only to hold boats back, but about the partying that's been going on for a couple of days, getting set for this Texaco Cup. Brian Wood is our reporter live from Kiro 7. Brian?
And tough duty out here. Right now we're in the south turn where the Bud and the Elam mixed it up last year, Heat 2A. Boy, as soon as that happened, Seafair knew that it had a problem. Not so much with the log boom, but with that floating buoy line. It floated in much too close. They made some major changes. They moved it way out. Take a look at what happened last year and you'll know why.
A crowd of more than 250,000 anxious spectators are on hand to view the race. Many of them come in their own yachts, tie up to the log boom along the straightaway of the course.
From the very first race, there's been a boom. Its size and shape have changed over the decades, though. It used to be an unbroken line more than 14,000 feet long, forming a half circle around the course. Now it's just 5,300 feet. Fir and hemlock logs, 65 feet each, towed into place and anchored to the lake bottom. But no matter what its size, it's still Seattle's biggest floating party, and all that goes with it. From the most luxurious to the leanest, they pay for the privilege of having the best Seafair view of the action on the water and in the air. Whether the weather cooperates or not, they love it. That's just a bit of background on this is the very first race in 1951. But back to the point about that floating log boom. They moved it another 1,200 feet out. So it's going to be far away from any danger should the hydros tangle it up again, Steve.
All right, Brian Wood, thanks very much. We'll work on getting that signal in from Brian just a little bit better. But as you can see, even the signal's taking some time out to enjoy itself along the log boom today. Aside from the Elam and the Bud entanglement from a year ago, we also remember really the story of the day, and that was Mark Evans in the Pico American Dream. His proverbial flip and win, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Scott, 17 years in the sport, have you?
No, that was never been done since, I think, 51 when they had the first race here and when the sport really started to take off. It has never been done before, and I hope we don't have to see it again. It's a hard way to win a boat race.
Here is what exactly we're talking about 1 year ago. Mark Evans in the Pico and the flip and win.
Really putting the pedal to the metal on the outside. Oh, flares are up. We've got a problem. We got a boat that's gone sideways on us. up in the turn. We've got a problem.
Mark Evans had been favored to take the trophy in last year's Texaco Cup, but in a split second, his dreams were dashed.
I was laid back between two boats, and as we went into the turn, either one pinched in or one slid out. No matter what, I was back, behind him, and we call it the door closed. That's how we say that. And they slid together, and as I turned up and up and up and went through the rooster tail, I go, and there again, oh man, please help me get through this. The boat just sailed on through the rooster tail and lit upside down.
You are looking at the inverted now Pico American Dream. We do not see Mark Evans.
Trapdoor is.
It's very terrifying, very scary for me.
You kind of hold your breath there at first.
You don't think about it before, so it kind of surprises you when it happens.
Evans was upside down, literally pinned behind his steering wheel. For a moment, all was silent as family and fans watched and waited for a sign he was okay.
We do not see Mark Evans.
Then suddenly,
I see a hand or a foot or something coming out. I guarantee you.
Yeah, there's Mark. You can see his dramatic picture.
Yeah, he
Mark
seems to
is
be
trying to get himself out of the race boat.
He's at the.
And he appears to be having. There he goes.
There he goes. He's going to do it
pulling himself out.
For his family, the rescue was a painful process.
When the camera was on him, I said it was just like giving birth to him for the second time, only he came out breech and not fast enough.
He's talking to his rescue man. He's out.
Let's give him a big
pats him on the back. They hug, and Mark Evans is all right.
A very lucky Mark Evans waved to the crowd, but the best was yet to come. A prediction proved to be accurate.
You know what's going to happen? He's going to go jump in the hull of the team steel boat for the balance of the day. He may still win this thing yet. I know Mark Evans, and I'll bet that's what he does.
Well, he did win that thing, as Scott said. The Budweiser, meantime, thinks they can win it all. They believe that this is going to be their day on the shores of Lake Washington, but they're going to get some competition, and we're going to talk about that competition and the Bud Camp when we come back. Well, our boat racing hasn't started yet, but our air show has. The Oric XL flight team dazzling the folks along the shores of Lake Washington. And those of us who are here to watch boat racing are getting a pretty good show as well. Now, we are really looking for a show out of the Brett boat. The Budweiser camp is certainly the team to beat. They spend more money, have more talent, more equipment than anybody on the race course today. But will they win? That's the question that's being asked among all the drivers and boat owners today. For the story, let's go down to the pits and the Budweiser camp and Tony Ventrella.
Of course, it's one of the many big stories developing today. We remember last year at Tri-Cities, a year ago last week, when Dave Villwock flipped in one of the Budweiser boats, and there was a bad injury, and he wouldn't race for quite a while. There was a long rehab period. The first reporter to talk to him in the hospital after he began to get well was our own Bill Rocky. And then, Bill, you guys, I guess, kind of went back to the scene of the crime. Just tell us a little bit about that.
It was a lot different this year going back to the scene than it was a year ago. Last year, Dave went out there, flipped the Budweiser, lost a couple fingers in the accident, and just had tons of surgeries, 15 to be exact. Last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, I went out to the Tri-Cities, got in a boat with Dave, and we drove around the course, and he kind of went back and told us what happened.
Running about 195 to 197 miles an hour right in this area, and then starting into the turn. And last year I had Evans pinched in on the inside, so I was able to carry a lot of boat speed through here in lane 2. That was the good news. The bad news was just after I got around the apex turn in the middle of this turn, there was some huge waves that had my name all over them. Unfortunately, we carried a lot of speed into the turn, and just at the wrong time, we went into some big waves, which upset the boat. Even though I tried to get the canards down as we hit them, it still really just wasn't enough. You know, the boat still went airborne. Rocked side to side, blew over backwards, and then lit really out about 50 yards in front of us here. So, but that's the way it goes. Every once in a while, the best laid plans go south. Just about the time right here where I splashed down was the time I was thinking I just about had this final heat won, but it didn't happen.
And the amazing thing about it, Tony, is Dave's gone through so much, and his spirits are really good. He's kind of put it behind him, and very excited to be back racing again.
Boy, he is. He certainly has put it behind him. It's not the first time he's crashed. He's had 3 in his career, and he told me yesterday there's only one thing he's thinking about now, and that is winning today, and that story will unfold here in the next couple of hours. Steve, back up to you.
All right, Tony, we are covering not only from the pits, we're covering out on the log boom, as we talked to Brian Wood a moment ago, and we're covering for the first time this year live from the shoreline where the fans are. You, the fan. Boy, there's a lot of folks out on that boat who are enjoying themselves as well. The Argosy pulling into position to watch some boat racing today. We're going to go down to the pits, listen to some of you. Are you excited about boat racing? We are. Come on back. Isn't it just glorious out, looking out across the floating bridge? And we're still, about a half an hour, 35 minutes away from Heat 1A here on Lake Washington. Steve Rabel, Kiro 7, live coverage of the Texaco Cup at Seafair. You know, there are almost as many stories along the shoreline as there are in the pits, talking about the boat racing. Fans have been coming here, literally, families have come here for generations. Come over the hill and down to the waterfront to watch the boats run. Our Megan Black from Kiro 7 is following the folks who are coming to watch the boat racing, from corporations to little family groups. Megan?
Well, Steve, for 48 years now, folks have been lining the shores of Lake Washington here. That's how many Seafairs we've had, and so you get kind of a routine down. You see, we have a little bit of open space here on the shores. Those spaces are still available, $18 a piece, but in order to get the best seats here in the South Turn, right along the water, you have got to get here early, and that's what folks were doing. This is Seafair. You do whatever it takes to get here to have fun.
We are on time this morning and looking forward to it.
Walter Vierick and his family have Seafair Sunday down to a science.
Getting it together the night before so you can get up at 6:30 and really beat the rush. We got down here at 8 o'clock, and as you probably have seen, almost all the beachfront property was gone by 8 o'clock. So you really need to get here at 7:30 to get a good seat, and that took some planning.
Planning for some is getting up at the crack of dawn and sleeping in beachside.
He'll wake up on his own. I hope. I'm not going to wake him. I'll let him sleep.
Others pass the time until race time, swimming a bit, lubing up, and just having fun, because that's what this is all about. And of course, there are the races.
Oh, we're rooting for Geronimo today. He's number 2, and Bud always seems to win this thing, so we're going to root for number 2 today.
Steve, as you mentioned, just about 25 minutes away to the start of the first heat. The party's beginning out on the boats here on the shores of Lake Washington. We're getting ready to have some fun. Steve, back to you.
All right, Megan, thanks. And the drivers are getting ready as well for fun and for a day of work. Let's go down to the pits and Bill Wixie.
Thanks, Steve. I'm here with Ken Muscatel, the driver of the U-14 Tweetins RV Mart boat. And right now they're doing some last-minute repairs. As you see, they're actually gluing on a piece of the pontoon there. And Ken, is this cutting a little bit closer, a half hour from the first heat?
Yeah, we had some problems getting the boat on plane, and that's a part that got ripped off in Tri-Cities, and we decided we need to get on the boat. You think that's bad? An hour ago, they were gluing parts onto me.
All right, Ken Muscatel, one of the class acts here in the pits, and we'll check back with you in a little bit. Thanks, Ken.
Ken's getting set to drive. We're getting ready to talk to the director of Seafair, and what a spectacular they have put together again this year. Beth Wojcik's our guest when we come back. Stand by. The boats are not only on the cranes and in the slings, they're already being placed in the water. We've got a little time, about 20 minutes before we go boat racing. We'll be calling that U1 boat a number of times before the day is over, the Budweiser team. And the man who'll be doing the call of the race for us is, well, he's Mr. Hydroplane around this part of the country. He calls races all over the United States, and we're happy to have him back with us here again today for Seafair 98, Mr. Mike Fitzsimmons. Michael?
Well, it's great to be back, Steve. It's great to be back with you and Scotty and the whole Kiro crew. We have a lot of fun doing this. These are the best people I work with all year round anywhere, and I really enjoy very much having the opportunity to be a part of this. We're going to have a day that's going to be just terrific, and I think one of the reasons why it's going to be so exciting is the clock start. It's different from the flags that we're used to for the last several years. Let's take a look at what it's all about. It's all a matter of timing. The fastest boat across the start line can blow away the field, but the best boat may not win. A good driver has an advantage.
It's part of the strategy, you know. I mean, in a chess game, you have a bunch of pawns. what would a chess game be without a bunch of pawns? It was part of the game.
Under the bridge around the north turn buoys, the flying hydros roar toward the starting line.
The clock is also a part of history. Good racers could time their flying start to reach the line at that perfect moment.
The clock start, of course, the purists, the old-timers in the sport, have always clamored for it.
We learned to race that way in little boats, for years, and it's always been just the way you race. So actually, when they went to the flag start, it was all kind of disappointing in some respects. So a lot of us drivers that have been around a while are happy to see it back.
It works like this. The clock starts 10 minutes before the start of the race. There is a flare fired at the 5-minute period, allowing the boats to leave the pits and get out onto the course and begin to warm up. Another warning flare is fired at the 1-minute gun. A green flag is displayed until the clock ticks the last few seconds down to 0.
Yeah, I love it. Clock start puts everything back in the driver's seat.
The clock starts, I have mixed emotions. I thought that the flag start was a great show, but from a driver's perspective, it's fun to try to cut that light every time.
One thing remains the same. The first one across the finish line is the winner. But with that clock start, the first one across the finish line isn't always the odds-on favorite, and that adds an element of suspense that I like a whole lot. It's the traditional way to start boat races.
Scott Pierce, you drove for 17 years. You like the clock start better than the flag?
I really did. It gave an opportunity to somebody that maybe had a chamber full of BBs to race against somebody that was shooting 16-inch howitzers off the Mighty Mo. It really will add a lot of suspense to the race here today. It'll be interesting to see if the guys get themselves caught up. You don't want the inside lane in Seafair. Seattle is not a good place to be in the inside. 2, 3, or my choice would be all the way outside.
But Mike Fitzsimmons, even in these days now, the teams with the most money, the Budweiser team, don't they have more people, more spotters, more guys on radios to be able to talk to the driver and kind of direct him around to try to make the clock start work?
Well, they certainly have a bigger team, only one guy on the radio. They've got a lot of assets, but the difference here is the leavening presence of that clock and the ability to adjust the race in advance of the gun going off at the very beginning. That's such an important part. And the strategy, as Scott mentioned, I think a little bit earlier, has not been used by these drivers very much, so they're all kind of green at it in a lot of ways. A couple of drivers who aren't, Steve David, he's one who absolutely isn't. One driver who's a little green but has a lot of boat speed, and that's Mitch Evans. If Mitch can figure out how to get to the starting line at the exact moment that gun goes off, he's got speed, and he can take the Budweiser on head-to-head.
In 10 seconds, gentlemen, Mike, I start with you. Are we expecting some tight racing today?
Yes, I think we have to expect that, yep.
Scott?
Yeah, I think that we will. I don't anticipate a whole lot of activity in the preliminary heats, but I think that everyone's going to lay back, save their best for the final, and just throw everything they have at them for the final.
Final's about 4:10, but we're live on TV with you here on Kiro 7 all through the day. Stand by. Boat racing coming up. There we go. That's great. Thank you. Well, they're putting the boats in the water now. We're about 15 minutes away from Heat 1A here with the Texaco Cup at Seafair 1998. And again, the fans continue to move into position. It's still a little early, 10:45, but we're expecting 350,000 fans, and among them another member of our team here with Kiro 7, Margot Kim. Margot.
That's right, Steve. We've been up and down this shoreline, and it's pretty evenly mixed between the people who've come here to see the Blue Angels and those who've come to see the Hydro races. But one thing is for sure, everyone agrees on one particular thing. You couldn't ask for better weather for Seafair.
It's beautiful weather for it. Yeah, it's amazing.
There's no shortage of sun, but with that comes the essential survival gear. Hats, umbrellas, even tents, and plenty of sunscreen. Elise Golden came prepared, but her last name is a bit deceiving.
Pretty fair skin, so I burn very easily.
Others opted to keep completely out of the sun.
Well, we got some trees around here, a lot of shade, good spot, good view of everything. And we were first to get up top, away from everyone, so.
Some people are staying away from the crowds, but most everyone is crowding in as close to the shoreline as possible to get a good view of those boat races. And besides that, everyone is packing coolers out here, trying to stay cool out of the sun. Back to you, Steve.
Margot, thanks. You know who's always cool is the owner of the Bud team, although I've seen him get a little antsy a time or two. Villwock has Bernie Little in the pits.
Steve, Bernie just walked over. He's going to talk to Dave Villwock here a little bit. Dave's just getting into the boat. They've decided to use T5. That's the newer boat, built in 1998. In fact, there's a born-on date of April 12th, 1998, in case you were wondering when this boat was officially made. Dave, the reason they're using this, simply put, Dave likes this boat better, and it's better on the 2-mile courses. Let's go back over to Tony Ventrella.
Thanks, Bill. With Steve David live a couple of minutes before getting into the boat for Heat 1A. Hey, this would be fun. Did you work this out so you and Dave could race together in 1A?
I tell you, yeah, this ought to be great. I mean, we want them every time. We want that red boat so Freddie's can put them behind. But we're going to save a little for the final because that's what really counts. You got to get through these heats, accumulate points. But Freddie's is ready to take them out when we need to.
All right, thanks, Steve David. Good luck. Have a good day today. Back up to Steve Rabel.
All right, Tony, here is the Heat lineup for Heat 1A. You just heard Steve David talking about it. The U1 Miss Budweiser with Dave Villwock at the controls. Freddie's Club and Steve David. U2, the Graham Trucking, Mike Weber will be in Heat 1A, along with Chaplin's Bellevue Volkswagen, Jerry Hale in the cockpit, and Tweeton's RV Mart, Ken Muscatel driving. And as we heard from Bill Wixie, they were doing some last-minute damage control on the Tweeton's boat a few moments ago. We'll see if that's held and if they're all set for Heat 1A. So there's your lineup. We've got a few minutes before we go boat racing here, but again, the boats are in the water. We'll come back, talk to you more, give you some info about the drivers. Relax, we've got a lot to do yet today.
The 1998 Seafair Texaco Cup pre-race has been brought to you by Texaco, a world of energy, and by Southwest Airlines, the official airline of Seafair, giving you the freedom to fly.
30 seconds.